The business-to-business e-commerce market is massive. In 2022, the global B2B e-commerce market was valued at $20.4 trillion US. That makes it over 5 times the size of the B2C e-commerce market. And while marketplaces like Amazon, Alibaba, and eBay take over a lion's share of B2C sales, in B2B, the marketplace trend is still in its early stages. In 2021, marketplaces took 67% of all global e-commerce. In B2B, their share was in the single digits. But growth is happening fast. By the end of 2024, marketplaces will already take 14% of all B2B e-commerce. In fact, one report says that marketplaces are the fastest growing digital sales channel in B2B. So let's spell out the obvious here. There is a tremendous opportunity for new marketplaces in B2B. In this video, we'll expand on this simple statement and look at 6 more specific factors that boost the success potential of a B2B marketplace. 1. Holy Grail transactions. 2. Inefficient processes. 3. Fragmented markets. 4. The changing of habits. 5. Blue ocean. And 6. New ways to engage customers. We'll also take a moment to look at the flip side of these opportunities and how founders can solve the challenges that come with the B2B marketplace model. Let's dive in. We get the chance to talk to lots of marketplace investors and experts here at Sharetribe. Almost without fail, they tell us that they're excited about B2B marketplaces specifically. You'll find a long list of these interviews and resources below. But I'll highlight this bit from my chat with the investor Josh Brainlinger.
I do love B2B marketplaces. I think there's tremendous opportunity there. The consumer marketplaces are really, really good and convenient and fully managed and great experiences. And in B2B, we're starting to see that now as they're getting into that level of convenience and simplicity and great experience. So I think there's a ton of opportunities in B2B.
The size of the B2B e-commerce market, of course, is a business opportunity in its own right. But more specifically, that opportunity relates, first of all, to the quality and quantity of individual transactions in B2B, i.e., Holy Grail transactions. Marketplaces thrive in markets that have either high single transaction value or high transaction frequency. For example, on Airbnb, the average transaction value is high, but transaction frequency is low. On Uber, it is the other way around. A single transaction, a ride, is low in value, but most of us do need a lift much more often than we need a vacation rental. A study by the VC firm Andreessen Horowitz reveals that successful marketplaces can operate with various combinations. But there is one category that the authors call the Holy Grail. That is the space where both the purchase frequency and average order value are high. This combination is called the Holy Grail for a reason. It is as powerful as it is difficult to find. But B2B marketplaces have a really high likelihood of falling into this category. You can imagine services like freight, equipment rental, or buying large quantity of goods. They are often high-value transactions that happen regularly. Now, most marketplaces, they monetize through commission. That means that the marketplace takes a cut out of each transaction it facilitates. So obviously, if transactions are of high value and high frequency, that reflects directly on the revenue potential of a marketplace that facilitates them. The flip side of this opportunity is a challenge called disintermediation. Disintermediation happens when buyers and sellers meet on your platform, but then move their frequent high-value transactions away from it. So they are getting the value from your marketplace, but they are bypassing its fees. As you'll hear in this quote from Ruthie Amaru, this challenge comes with the territory in B2B. Ruthie is the CEO of Freightos, a B2B marketplace for global freight.
I mean, B2B is this exploding space, right? B2B marketplaces. And It's a great place to be. But one of the biggest challenges there is the B2B is repeat business, which is very hard to keep on platform because just, fundamentally, if somebody's doing the same thing over and over again, they may develop a relationship and they'd want to just go off and do it on their own. So this is definitely something we spend a lot of time thinking about.
One way to combat the issue is to offer so much value to at least one side of your marketplace that circumventing the platform isn't worth the trouble, as is exactly the case with Freightos.
So we definitely do have buyers going off platform to the sellers. And in general, the sellers send them back to us because they prefer to manage it on platform.
Inefficient processes are another B2B characteristic that represents an opportunity for marketplaces. In the consumer realm, nearly any demand can be satisfied through a simple click. But in the B2B landscape, high-value, high-frequency transactions often still rely on pen, phone, fax, or even paper. And sales cycles are often really long, from the exchanges of RFQs and quotes to price negotiations, checking of certifications, signing of contracts, NDAs, approving work, getting purchase orders, and so on and so on and so on. Of course, all these practices persist for a valid reason. The stakes are high in B2B, and so the need for trust is high. Still, these complicated processes can and do produce significant inefficiencies, and marketplaces can help overcome them. This is both an opportunity and a massive technical challenge. It's an extremely complex technical undertaking to bring all the stages of a B2B transaction into an online setting. Here's an example of how modeling a B2B transaction flow could look like. So as you can see, you'll need to define steps like, do customers reach out to suppliers or vice versa? Is there a pre-booking step, or do the parties begin with negotiation? When and how do contracts get signed? Are there steps to track fulfillment or review and revise work delivered? How and when does payment happen? Now, depending on your market requirements, there could be plenty of more steps like user verification, certificate checks, NDA agreements, and so on. This is my cue to mention that Sharetribe has a built-in transaction engine that lets you customize your transaction flows down to the smallest detail. Our API supports an incredible level of customization, and you only need to build the front end. If your transaction flows are very complex, this feature alone can save you months in development time. Let's get back to the main point, which is that if a marketplace is able to solve the technical challenge and streamline those transaction steps, it can offer significant productivity improvements for both the sellers and the buyers. The third opportunity is market fragmentation. Marketplaces are great at aggregating products or services. This is a powerful benefit in B2B marketplaces that tend to have high fragmentation and low transparency. In many segments, the market is made up of lots of small suppliers who might have no standardized pricing mechanisms or sometimes not even an online presence. These markets often rely on personal contacts or intermediaries like brokers and agencies. A marketplace that aggregates all these suppliers into one place could bring transparency and a lot of efficiency into these transactions. Again, the opportunity comes with its challenges. How a marketplace matches supply and demand is first of all a UX challenge. You'll need to answer questions like, how do users connect on the platform? What is the search experience like? What criteria do buyers use to select? Can parties message before transacting? And what certification is required and when? And so on. Furthermore, matching supply and demand is ultimately a much larger question that relates to your entire strategy of how you provide value to your users. A key aspect of this is marketplace liquidity, achieving a balance between supply and demand so that each individual user on your marketplace is likely to have their needs met. We have an entire video dedicated to this topic, but what I will say here is that often the fastest way to reach liquidity is to narrow down your scope to a very small initial audience or a single category or location. Let's take another really great quote from Ruthie Amaru here, where she explains how Freightos first launched its freight marketplace with worldwide coverage, but then decided to scale back their approach.
And we published and we were ready to go with worldwide coverage for anybody who wanted to import or export. And that didn't work, right? You cannot start a marketplace that's that big because we'd have small importers, we discovered that there's a very big difference between an importer who's bringing in 30 prototypes from China, just to play around, and a Walmart, right? So suddenly you discover, oh my goodness, and then you discover, wow, people who are importing into the United States are totally different to people who are importing into India. So we basically narrowed down, we went from the entire world and everybody in the world to very small importers and exporters from China to the US. And it was a radical narrowing. As a matter of fact, my CEO at the time joked, he said, next you're going to tell me you're only doing this zip code to that zip code. And I basically said, if that's what it takes to start to build liquidity, that's what we'll do.
Yeah.
But that's when we started to actually see orders and really build liquidity and start to grow.
These quotes, by the way, are from an episode of our podcast, Two-Sided, where I sit down with marketplace heavyweights. Ruthie's interview is a fantastic lesson on everything you need to know about B2B marketplaces, and I can't recommend it enough that you listen to the whole thing. There's also an episode with Kevin Lustig from Scientist.com and an episode with Michael DiGiorgio from Craigseat that are both really strong recommendations, and I'll link them below as well. The fourth opportunity is that folks already know how to use marketplaces. As a result of the B2C marketplace revolution, private consumers have changed their buying habits. We've all gotten very familiar with e-commerce and marketplaces, and we know our way around the standard marketplace user flow. We know marketplace payments, and we're familiar with trust-building elements like reviews and identity verification. This change of habits in B2C spills over to B2B. We don't need to be taught new tricks to bring up business purchases online too. That means the barrier to adopting new technologies is lower today than when the B2C marketplace revolution took place. That also means users expect a certain level of UX quality from the get-go, so meeting the table stakes demands can already require a significant amount of technical investment. Which is another great cue to mention Sharetribe, because our marketplace builder gives you the marketplace essentials out of the box, so you don't need to spend any time custom developing these basic features. We base these essentials on our many years of experience with marketplaces and having powered thousands over the years. Instead, you can spend your time and your budget on building your unique IP. Moving on to the fifth opportunity. Another clear difference between B2C and B2B is that in B2B, plenty of blue ocean remains. Most new consumer-facing marketplaces will have to take on existing competitors and innovate on product to compete. B2B marketplace platforms still have the luxury of unexplored market space. Blue ocean. Here's a great quote on this from my interview with investor Matthias Ockenfels.
I think in B2C, a lot of categories have been covered already, but like kind of marketplace 1.0 approaches. So if you want to build the next marketplace there, you have to really innovate on product, right? You have to really build a solution that is 10, 100 times better than what is there already and try to break through the existing network effects. Whereas in B2B, there's just a lot of categories where there's no marketplace right now. There's nothing. Or at best, you maybe have a classifieds or listing site, but there's no dominant player in a lot of verticals. So you can still come in kind of green field and just start from scratch and be a first mover. So that's why also I think we like that space a lot, because there's an advantage in marketplaces to be the first one and be able to build up network effects actually over the time and solve the chicken and egg problem without having to battle with someone else.
Here, the challenge is no longer technical. It relates to how you kick off the two-sided dynamics of a marketplace. The chicken and egg problem in the context of marketplaces refers to a situation where you need to decide which side of your audience you build first. We have an entire video on that topic too, but let's instead take one more great quote from Ruthie Amaru here.
So the first kind of thing I probably need to answer is the chicken and egg question, right? Always the question when you're building a marketplace, do you start by building up your supply or your demand? And in the case of Freightos, we actually had decided up front that we were going to build up the supply first, because not only do you need to choose, right? Where do I start, supply or demand? But our supply side didn't even know how to automate their pricing yet. So when we founded Freightos, we actually knew up front that we needed 3 years to build a supply side platform that would allow for automated pricing. So that was step one.
What Ruthie mentions here is often called the single-player mode of marketplaces. If the supply side on your marketplace lacks tools to automate and run their business in the online world, you can first bring them in with the value proposition of a great SaaS offering. And once you have your supply onboarded and are ready to go, you can open up your marketplace to the demand side. This quote from the real estate marketplace Crexy founder Michael DeGiorgio shows how a great SaaS offering can also help your demand acquisition efforts.
And then another thing we were really forward thinking on was ensuring that when we brought that supply, that we also built tools that let the supply bring their own demand. So really by us letting the supply side use it for free, it got us demand for free too, because we had all these tools within that would really incentivize the broker to want to bring their own buyers and bring the demand side of commercial real estate to the platform also. So that was a big one too.
Finally, adding a marketplace component can be a new way for an existing business to engage its customers. This approach can minimize the financial risks that come with more traditional business expansion. When you start a marketplace, third-party suppliers bring their own capabilities, marketing, and customer networks, easing your investment burden. This kind of ecosystem of third-party suppliers can be a great way to serve a wider variety of customer needs and adapt quickly into new developments in the market. A marketplace can also be a whole new way to build relationships with customers and increase their loyalty. Now, let's wrap up. So to wrap up, there is a massive opportunity for marketplace businesses in the B2B e-commerce space. The size of the market alone makes it interesting. B2B e-commerce is 5 times the size of B2C e-commerce. In our talks with marketplace founders, specialists, experts, we've identified 6 more specific opportunities for B2B marketplaces. They are high-value, high-frequency transactions, sometimes called Holy Grail transactions, inefficient existing processes that a marketplace can help streamline, fragmented markets that a marketplace can help aggregate, an audience that is already familiar with using marketplaces in their personal lives, lots of blue ocean with no marketplace incumbents yet, and an opportunity for existing businesses to add a marketplace element to their offering as a new way of engaging with their audience. Many of these opportunities come with the flip side. Building a two-sided marketplace is hard, both from the technical side and from the business side. At Sharetribe, we've developed a marketplace builder that combines the best of no-code and code. I really believe that it can be a game changer for helping founders get the technical side of things going and save a considerable amount of time and money. If this is something that could be useful for you, I hope you give our product a try for free at sharetribe.com. As for the business challenges, we've had the chances to talk to a lot of smart people during the 10+ years we've worked with marketplaces, and I've curated a long list of related content in the video description. One last thing. If you want to learn even more about B2B marketplaces, I do recommend to follow my podcast, Two-Sided, the Marketplace Podcast, where I interview founders, early employees, and investors of the biggest successful marketplaces to discover what made marketplaces tick and what makes them successful. As you've seen from the quotes, we regularly discuss B2B marketplaces there as well. Thanks so much for watching, and the best of luck with your B2B marketplace business.